Hello everybody, this is Fun Police, and today I am bringing you a quick tutorial as the game has just fully released, and I'm going to be providing a quick overview and some tips and tricks in this video about formation. Within the game, fire and maneuver formations are crucial to making your units effective, as they can modify things such as the damage, the resistances, and the movement capabilities of your various units. There are three types of units in this game: infantry, cavalry, and artillery, and they each have their own unique set of formations, and we're going to cover all of them, the uses for each one, and what they all do, so you have a clear understanding of what units can do what. We'll start out with the largest tab by taking a look at the infantry, which has a total of 5 formations that it can make use of. The most basic one is closed order, or line formation. This is a formation that is your standard shooting one. It has the ability to shoot in the 3 tiles in front of it. It is able to move 1 space into adjacent tiles. And it is not weak to anything. It won't take bonus damage from anything. Line formation is best utilized if you're wanting to deal extra damage, because line formation is unique in that it gives your units +1 range damage, meaning that the units deal more damage when they are in line. This makes them more effective at dealing damage against pretty much everything except open order, and can make units a lot more lethal while not making them super vulnerable either. However, there is the downside that your unit also doesn't have any resistances itself, which can leave it open to being attacked or damaged in various ways. You then have the closed, or the attack column formation. This is a formation largely intended for assaults, namely getting a unit into melee or having some flexibility in movement while not giving up all of your offensive capabilities. The attack column is able to move 2 spaces into adjacent territory. It is able to shoot in the 1 tile in front of it. However, it does suffer from having a ranged vulnerability, meaning it will take extra damage if it gets shot at. However, like the line column, it actually does get a bonus damage. However, this is for the charge command. An attack column charging into an enemy will deal +1 damage, meaning that this is the prime formation you want to utilize if your infantry is going in for a charge, as you get bonus damage. It's a formation that you must be careful about, because stuff like fire at will and other units covering the enemy's line will be able to shoot at them and deal a lot of damage, but if you're able to utilize it well, they can be extra mobile and also provide you devastating charges. Then we have the third formation, open order. Open order is a formation that is built for wide area coverage and relies on survivability to be useful. Open order is a formation that gives a unit range resistance, meaning that it will take less damage when shot at. As long as its cohesion is above 0 is a notable thing, however. Once the unit loses cohesion, this range resistance goes away, so keep that in mind, is that only when this unit has these blue cohesion bars is it able to actually be resistant to range. On top of that, as you can see, this unit has a pretty serious firing arc, able to cover not only the spaces in front of it, but the diagonals and even to its side, giving it massive coverage for a single unit. This is a benefit of open order in that this can be a great way to cover your flanks. For example, this unit here would be able to not only shoot its stuff in front of it, but could cover this side road or even its flank over here, and that's all from 1 unit. This formation also still gets just 1 adjacent movement. However, it also does not get any benefits in damage, unlike something like closed order, meaning that open order is not dealing a lot of damage, but instead is there to provide that coverage and also make your unit resistant. On top of that, there is one downside. Open order is vulnerable to charges. This means that if a unit in open order gets charged, it will take even more damage. And what this means is that, for example, if an attack column were to charge into an open order, that would be a massive amount of damage. It would be a total of 2 bonus damage applied. One from the attack column giving charge damage, and then one from the open order giving an additional point of damage for the penalty. So you must be careful about these units getting caught in melee, but open order is very, very useful and is a very consistent option to go with. The next one we have is square formation. Square formation is a anti-cavalry formation the game describes. The unit is trading quite a bit for some extreme benefits, but also some real downsides. So first off, this formation can't move. This unit, while in square, is unable to move, meaning that this unit is very vulnerable if the enemy can counter it successfully. On top of that, it is also vulnerable to range, meaning that this is a formation that can be very easily damaged just by shooting at it. It's very similar to the attack column in that regard. So that's 2 real downsides. Being immobile and also being easy to shoot at is a very dangerous combination to have. So what are the upsides? Well, the upsides are 3 things, maybe. Number 1 is that it covers an entire area around it. Although I have other units here, it would, if it wasn't blocked, be covering this entire range around it. It is the best coverage pretty much any infantry can get, especially with a rifle on it. This means that it is able to protect the front, the sides, and the rear, meaning that it is able to shoot at pretty much anything that gets within a spitting distance of it. On top of that, you also are uniquely range or charge invulnerable. What this means is that a charge will deal 0 damage to a unit in square, and that is where the big benefit of square comes from. Being able to completely negate a charge can be incredibly powerful, as it essentially renders the enemy's often expensive commitment of a charge into something that is completely a downside for them, essentially wasting their cohesion or no upside. And then the third smallest benefit is that this unit is immune to flanking damage. You can't get back shots or side shots on a square, although they all do take bonus damage, so be aware of that. And then the final one is marching column, a formation that focuses heavily on movement and trades all of its capabilities in terms of combat for it. This formation is able to move 2 spaces diagonally, meaning it can move quite far and is the most nimble formation infantry has access to. It also can benefit from roads, able to move 3 spaces on a road if it needed to, meaning that, again, it is the most mobile infantry formation. However, this comes at the downside of this formation is unable to charge, and it is also unable to shoot. On top of that, it also is encumbered with having vulnerabilities, both in range and charge. This means that this formation is completely useless when actually fighting, but does have the most mobility. It is best utilized at the start of a match or when you quickly need to redeploy something, but make sure to get out of this formation before the unit gets shot at, because otherwise this unit can be annihilated in combat. Moving on, there are some special cases that need to be talked about with infantry. Notably, we need to talk about militia, and then also certain other things within infantry. So starting out with militia, militia are essentially a standard infantry unit, but they lose access to 2 formations. They do not get access to open order, and they do not get access to square formation. This means that these units are generally a bit more on the vulnerable side, as without open order they are often quite squishy, and square means that they are never able to threaten that formation when they are about to get charged. They can only form line as a best defense. These are notable downsides to militias, but often these guys are cheap filler units and aren't meant to be super hardcore frontline units. Their breakable trait doesn't really allow them to, so generally that is not a massive downside. Then we also have skirmishing. Skirmishing is a unique trait. It is this yellow bugle on the green background. But the most notable thing is that it affects open order specifically. An infantry with skirmishing in open order is able to move diagonally. As you can see, this open order unit can move into either of these adjacent or these diagonal tiles, whereas this infantry without skirmish is unable to. This is unique to the skirmish perk and is actually very powerful, as it allows you to be very mobile and move very quickly into important positions while remaining in open order. It also makes these units hard to charge, as if they move diagonally, most units are unable to follow them and actually connect with their charges. And the final thing are 4 health units. There are various infantry units that come with either 6 or 4 health. However, 4 health units are unable to form square. They just don't have the manpower to do so, and this means that often 4 health units are a bit more vulnerable to charges, as they're unable to form square to deflect. So just keep that in mind. So as a quick recap of the different formations, closed order formation is when you're looking to maximize damage, but you do open yourself up to enemy damage if they're also in line. It's a formation that is all around solid, but can be picked apart by high damage and be outshot, so be careful of that. Then you have attack column. This is mainly utilized for its charge benefits. The extra mobility and the ability to deal bonus charge damage makes it ideal for any infantry looking to get into melee. Open order is probably the go-to formation. If you're unsure what to put a unit in, open order is generally a safe one. The range resistance is very, very good and makes the unit very flexible in terms of just not dying. But it also just has a lot of coverage, meaning you can use units to just use fire at will, and they've suddenly locked down, entire positions on their own. Square is a bit more specific. You generally only want to use square when you anticipate the enemy charging. Let's say they've put a cavalry unit right next to your infantry. If they charge in, you could form square, negate the charge, and leave the cavalry in a very bad position. That's the main use of something like square. Although you can also place it in stuff like cover, such as a town or a forest, and utilize it to shoot at and be very good in coverage, and then using the cover to offset the downside of it taking bonus damage. And then marching column is for maneuverability. It is unable to attack at all, and you need to get out of it if you want to fight, but getting into a position, marching column is the go-to option. But now we can successfully move on to cavalry. Cavalry is built with 4 formations in it, 1 less than the standard infantry. They will look very similar to the various formations you have on infantry, although there are definitely some unique things about them. We'll start off with the most basic formation, line. Cavalry line allows the unit to move into adjacent tiles equal to its movement. Light cavalry can move 3, and heavy cavalry will be able to move 2. On top of that, this formation allows the units to shoot if it has a rifle on it. They are able to fire just into the one space in front of them, and line also acts a bit like attack column, allowing the unit to deal +1 damage when they charge, making it the best formation cavalry has when they're looking to deal high damaging charges. However, like attack column, this formation also is vulnerable to range damage. Cavalry overall generally suffers from being a bit squishy when getting shot at. So keep that in mind and make sure to not run them into a line of infantry where they get blasted to bits. However, this is still a very useful formation. Being able to deal such high damage with such mobility can be very, very powerful. Another formation is the marching column formation. This is essentially the same thing as on infantry. It allows cavalry to move diagonally and is one of the highest mobility in the entire game. They also can benefit from roads, allowing them to move an additional space, but they are unable to shoot and they are unable to charge while being vulnerable to any sort of damage. It's the same thing as the march column, just on cavalry. Still, if you're looking to rush cavalry into a position, this is about the quickest way you can get them there, and once they're in position, have them change formation and they'll be able to be a bit more effective. Then we get into a formation that is unique to cavalry, echelon. As you see on this light cavalry, this is the formation is grayed out. They are unable to make use of this. Echelon is the way that heavy cavalry remains useful compared to the light cavalry, as heavy cavalry moves slower, but now has a formation that allows them to utilize some unique powers. First off, it can move diagonally. This is a formation that is able to move diagonally and still perform attacks. Now, this unit is not able to shoot, but it can charge, and it notably is able to charge diagonally, meaning that it is able to run up to an enemy and then do something like this, where it moves adjacent diagonally and then charges diagonally. That can be very, very powerful, and means that although the heavy cavalry doesn't cover as much room as the light cavalry, it's able to cover more of its total area and threaten pretty much any position. However, that's not the only thing, as Echelon also has no vulnerabilities, meaning that this unit is the only formation of a mounted cavalry that doesn't take damage when shot at, or bonus damage when shot at. It also is capable in charges. If it gets charged, it won't take bonus damage, unlike something like the march column. This gives the line formation, or this gives Echelon a lot of utility, and it's probably one of the best formations on heavy cavalry. And then let's talk about the final formation, and that is dismounted open order. This is essentially just open order on infantry, but on cavalry. As you see, it's got the same coverage, and it pretty much has all the same upsides and downsides. When this unit has cohesion, it'll have a damage resistance to enemy ranged fire, but it is weak to getting charged. It is able to move one space at a time and only adjacent tile spaces unless it has skirmishing where it can move diagonally. If you're looking to shoot, this is easily the best formation to utilize with cavalry. Otherwise, you're generally having very limited options when it comes to shooting, only having the tile in front of you. When looking to utilize these formations, march column is best utilized for, as I mentioned, getting into position quickly. If you need to dash a cavalry unit into something like, say, a town or on a hill or some other place, marching column is easily the most effective tool out there. You also have line formation that is best utilized when you're looking to pull off heavy hitting charges. Being able to move up to 3 tiles means that cavalry can often be behind your line, move out, and then still charge and land a devastating effect. That is definitely one of the best formations for catching an enemy unit, and can be very useful at punishing something that's, say, sitting in open order, as the enemy may not expect you to move such far distances and then land that charge on them. Echelon is the formation that is probably most versatile for heavy cavalry. Its flexibility allows it to quickly move around the battlefield in a relatively safe formation where it won't take bonus damage and potentially get annihilated by getting caught by one fire at will or something like that. And then finally, dismounted is best utilized when you're looking to actually shoot with the cavalry. If you have a unit that has a dash to a position in, say, march column, if they have a carbine, putting them in open order can be extremely useful to just pepper the enemy, as they have to then start to deal with that before they can even try to take the position. And then the final unit type is artillery, which only has 3 formations to make use of. So this will be the quickest one. However, let's start off by talking about the limbered formation. Limber is your standard formation. This formation is unable to shoot, but is the only artillery formation able to move. Now, its baseline is that it can only move one space, but it can move diagonally when in this position. On roads, it's able to move an extra space, meaning that it gets a little bit more movement when you're dragging these things along roads. Notably, cavalry formations are also able to move two spaces no matter what, so that's the benefit of bringing horse artillery. But on top of that, limbered is, again, unable to shoot, and obviously artillery is not able to charge. And this formation is also vulnerable to pretty much everything. Range vulnerable and charge vulnerabilities, very similar to the marching columns. It's there to get your artillery into position, but it's not there to be a combat position. If you're looking for that, then you want to start looking at something like concentrated battery. Concentrated battery gives your artillery two primary things. First off, it is able to give your artillery +1 range. So this artillery has 4 range normally, but because I'm in concentrated battery, it has +1 range to it, meaning it has 5 actually, and is able to shoot at this bridge you can see here. On top of that, it also gives artillery +1 range damage, meaning they deal 2 damage. Very similar to the closed order formation or line that infantry has. It's overall this formation benefits and focuses on maximizing range and also damage in favor of giving up a little bit of coverage, and it's only able to shoot essentially like a closed order infantry. If you're looking for coverage, then you will want to look for something like open order. Open order is where you get maximum coverage, but you deal less damage, and also you're dealing less damage overall, and are generally more so for this coverage. Open order, as you see, covers the same thing as an open order infantry or cavalry, but because of artillery's range, this thing paints the map red when it's actually in a formation like this. This formation is very useful when you're looking to have artillery be a supporting role. The sheer amount of tiles it covers means that one artillery piece can cover often half the battlefield. If you're looking, this is half of the entire battlefield this one artillery piece is essentially covering. Set it on fire at will, and this thing will pretty much be able to shoot at anything on this side of the battlefield, no matter where it is. However, it doesn't benefit from that extra range, meaning that, for example, this 3-range artillery is indeed only 3 range. And as I mentioned, it also is dealing 1 damage instead of the 2 that concentrated gets. In general, artillery is probably the most straightforward formations. You use limber to actually move the artillery. Line is when you're needing the range and damage. And then open order is when you're looking for, sorry, not open order, but open battery, I should say. But this formation is when you're looking to actually just have maximum coverage. But overall, those are all of the formations available within Fire and Maneuver. Hopefully this is a video useful to new people jumping into the game. This is all of the formations, and you definitely want to utilize a variety of them in order to make sure you are able to use them effectively, as good use of formations can decide the difference between wins or losses. Sitting in line the entire game is not always the best option. You need to utilize pretty much every formation all of them have in order to be effective in Fire and Maneuver. So if you're new to the game, my advice is make sure to utilize these formations a bit more. Use this video as kind of a guidebook in order to utilize it. And otherwise, that is all I have for today. If you enjoyed today's content, make sure to like and subscribe. There are more videos coming out in terms of guides and other content related to fire and maneuver, so you don't want to miss out on that. Otherwise, I want to thank you all so much for watching. I do appreciate it as always, and I hope you have a good day.